It's bad. Anime.
Hey everybody, I'm John.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Bad Anime, the show where we decide, is this anime bad? Now today, Rob, we are doing a very special edition of the 3-episode rule franchise. Isn't that right?
Yes, we are bringing it back again. We talked about doing another 3-episode rule for a while now, but the question is, what do you want to do? We're only, 3 to 4 weeks into, right now, it would be the spring season we're in. It is the spring of 2022, and
yes,
we just kind of kept scrolling through, but this is actually one you selected.
I know. For once, I made a suggestion for an anime, and I was very pleased with myself. I
was so proud of you because I'm like, oh my god, because we always talk about this weeb journey we're going on. I'm like, oh my god, Bounty's inner weeb is getting stronger by the episode.
It was awesome. Glorious. It's baby steps though, because the reason that I picked this anime is because when I opened Crunchyroll, it was the first thing in front of me. I was like,
it's so funny because full disclosure, I watched this today, like an hour before we started recording, so it's very fresh in my mind, and it was so funny. I didn't have to search for it. It was the first thing I saw. Was today's
when you get to Crunchyroll, it's that carousel, and it was legitimately the first thing in the carousel, and I was like, that show seems popular and interesting. Let's get into it, Rob. And you were like, wow, what a suggestion, very interesting. And I just imagine you opening Crunchyroll today and just being like, of course.
It eliminated some of the guesswork as to me trying to figure out why you chose this one. And by the way, we decided to watch the first 3 episodes of spyxfamily.
Yes.
And in contrast to what I usually do, because, for 3-episode rules, or pretty much any show we cover, or any movie, any OVA, I usually do a lot of research. I like to know who's involved, the studio, any relevant information. I didn't do any of that beforehand. I didn't even read any synopsis. I read nothing. All I had was the title and the image on the carousel, where it was the blonde dude, the black-haired girl, and the little pink-haired girl in the middle of them.
Yeah.
That's all I had going in. And and honestly, I'm so happy I didn't look anything up, because coming into the show completely cold and raw was the way I want everyone to come into the show.
It's like we accidentally switched roles this time. I recommended show based on right? Like, I recommended a show to you because I was like, oh, this seems interesting. And like, a lot of people, I actually saw a lot of TikToks about it too recently, just like talking about it. So I was like, oh, cool. And I saw the Crunchyroll comments on each episode, and there were just so many. So I was like, oh, wow, apparently this is like a big deal. And then I sent it to you, and you went in cold. So this is like a big opposite day kind of thing we got going on right here.
Oh, this is an entire role reversal, Freaky Friday scenario, whatever you want to call it. This scenario is we're completely flipped right now, and I like this. This is fun for me.
It's fun. It's different, and I gotta say, the series itself did surprise me quite a bit.
Oh yeah. When I heard spyxfamily, I really had no idea what I was getting in for, because I saw the image on the carousel, but with one still image, you can't really pick up on the tone of the series, what they're trying to do.
Right.
But they tried to do a lot, and honestly, they succeeded in a lot. So, Bouncy, if you want to take it away, what the hell is this show?
So, okay, so I it's interesting to me that you mentioned kind of like a first impression sort of thing, and kind of the vibe you got from it when you got into it. Because when I looked at it, and I saw that little family portrait of, like, the blonde guy, the dark-haired girl, and the small little girl, and the only other thing I've seen from the show have been TikTok clips of somebody lifting this very, very tiny pink-haired girl up in midair. Those are the only 2 things that I got from this show so far.
Really?
So going in, I thought this man has this family, right? And he just, lives a normal life, and like otherwise he's an undercover spy and nobody can know about it. It's kind of like that game Octodad, where you're an octopus, but nobody can find out you're an octopus. It's
and the entire time you're posing as a dad.
Yeah, you're posing as a dad. So it's that, but he's a spy. And he poses as a dad when he's not spying on people. But this show kind of threw me for a loop, complete 180, because the first episode, if we can get into it real quick.
Let's do it.
The first episode is a fucking kerfuffle.
Okay, so it was like I said, I just watched this, and I purposely didn't text you my thoughts because I wanted to come in completely cold for the podcast. I want to give all my thoughts on air, and I'll give one of them now.
Yes.
The thing I wanted to text you when I was probably 20 minutes, so most of the way through episode 1 was just in all caps, "This is fucking insane."
It goes very quickly in the first episode. I think those first 20 minutes is probably one of the most thorough, ridiculous exposition dumps that I've ever experienced in a show, because everything just picks up and keeps going, and they're just like, oh, what about this, and also you need a family, and also you need this, and also you gotta adopt this girl, and also she reads minds, and it's like, it's just, they just packed so much into this one single episode to start off.
The thing is though, it's really interesting because you say exposition dump. I don't think it's quite that, because in exposition dump they would give us so much more detail about who he works for, why.
Sure.
So they didn't really give you any details about the characters themselves. It was honestly just pacing. The first episode, the pacing was so fast. I feel like the first episode could have been the first 3.
Yes, I completely agree. That was a point that I had too, because when I was watching it, I just felt like I was on crack again.
Oh, nothing like getting back on the wagon.
Back on the wagon. I was like, whoa, so this is what love feels like. But
that hit me hard right now.
I got into it, and let's take it from the beginning, because it starts off with this spy, right? And of course, there's a little scene in the beginning, the very beginning, that lets us know who he is and what he does, and Twilight is his code name. And there's of course this beginning scene where he is in a disguise and beats a bunch of guys up and steals some documents. And all of the ideas surrounding this document that he stole are very funny, and they don't really elaborate on it, because he stole these documents of a governor or a senator wearing a toupee, and clearly
there's a bunch of photos and negatives of the photos themselves.
Of this man in a toupee.
And while the entire time he's speeding away, they're playing the James Bond theme but wrong in the background.
Yeah, because that's literally the entire soundtrack for the show.
The entire soundtrack. I mean, it's not a direct ripoff, because the melodies aren't really too similar or anything, but it's just such a clear, I guess you could say, pastiche more than an homage here if you want to get really pretentious, but it's a total pastiche of the Bond soundtrack, which I found really funny. And I think there was even, one of the characters we meet later, Anya, I think her code, there was someone who had the code 007. I'm like,
yes,
thanks.
Thanks. She we'll get into that, but she was an experiment, and her code name was 007, and I was like, okay, we know what this is.
But I can't really fault the show for that in a way, because if you have one influence, if one thing influenced you so clearly, it's kind of refreshing to wear it on your sleeve and be proud of it.
It is. It's kind of nice.
Obviously, you can make the argument that it's derivative, sure, but the thing is, the show is so original in its execution of everything else. It feels like a wildly creative guy who, like James Bond, had a hand in this show. So
it seems like it too, and also I really like the general time period that it takes place in, because it seems like it's about 1930s, 1940s. It seems like a Europe sort of thing, in that kind of era.
They never make it clear exactly in terms of timing, but a lot of the aesthetic is definitely 40s Europe, I'd say.
Maybe old technology, old cars, no phones.
Yes. No phones, so definitely, probably maybe pre-World War II Europe, so late 30s, maybe,
I would say
early 40s.
Around there. And of course, the crux of the plot, I guess, in general, is that this spy, Twilight, right? His country reaches out to him, and they're like, okay, well, obviously, you're a spy, so they keep telling him, do not expect anybody to know your work, don't expect anybody to give you a pat on the back for your work, but you're saving our country. And the next thing that you have to do to save our country is there's kind of some dispute between these two countries, and the other one is gonna go to war with theirs, and he has to kind of get in the good graces of some official
politician or something to that
some
effect,
kind of politician, and possibly kill him or do something to him. But that kind of isn't very clear what he has to do yet.
Because he's a spy and not an assassin. That kind of comes up later in the episode too. But
yes, it does.
So they don't really make it clear what his direct intentions are. They all they say is he has to get close to this certain high-ranking politician.
Yeah, something
And
like Desmond, I think his name was, or something like that.
I think it's Donovan Desmond.
Something like that. Some double D name. Hey there,
Yeah.
Vampire Hunter D. Yeah.
Doris, Dan, or High School DXD. We could have made that joke as well.
Oh, that's true. Lots of D's, including ours. Hello, boys.
D.
But yeah, so he has to get close to this Damien or Donovan, whatever guy. He has to get close to him in order
Damien
to do
Demento.
that. Damien Demento. He has to get close to Donnie Darko. And in order to get close to this man, he has to enroll his child in a children's academy, because it's the only place that this man ever shows up, because his child is also enrolled in this academy. But there's only one problem. He doesn't have a child.
Yeah, so the entire crux of the first episode is he needs to first find a child and then find a wife, because it'd be really suspicious if he had a child but no wife. So he suddenly wants a wife and kids just to complete the mission.
Which is so funny. And you would think that they would assign him like an agent to be his wife or something, and they actually explain that in in the next few episodes, but
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but it's basically like written off as like everybody's really busy, and like there's actually not that many agents that are eligible right now. And so it's kind of like they address it, but it's kind of pushed under the rug a little bit, where they're like, fuck you, just enjoy the show, all right?
You see, that's what I like about it, because they put the care to like acknowledge it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They gave time to like address like any plot holes that could exist, but at the same time, you're right. The tone was, here's your explanation. Fuck it. Just take the ride, boys.
Yeah,
Stop
like
complaining.
just enjoy the show. Just have a good time.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Which again, a great goal for a show. And and the show again. Once we met Anya, the fun picked up exponentially.
Oh boy, did it! Because he has to go shopping for a child, so he goes to all these.
Which is the whole scene where he goes to orphanages.
Scene.
He's basically shopping for a kitty.
He goes to all these different orphanages, and he's like, all right, do you got one that's like smart? Because I need her to pass this entrance exam to this school pretty soon. And everybody's like, I don't know. Everybody's kind of dumb here. And then one of the guys at the orphanages is like, oh, no, this girl's actually very smart. And she sits down, and he's like, he's like, watch her do this entire crossword puzzle. And she sits down, and the spy is thinking in his head, like, there's no way that she could solve all of these, like, but I can. So 9 across is this across is that, this up, down, and he's just thinking it. And she, it turns out, can read people's minds because she is some sort of scientific experiment of some kind.
Yep, she's a telepath.
Stranger Things. Yeah.
Exactly. Like we said, she's 007. She was an experiment. And now this experimentation has given her telepathic abilities.
Yeah.
And I love the way that ties into the plot very well and the character very well, where she has no idea what the crossword puzzle is, but she's just hearing all his doubts and him solving it, and she just does it.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. And then, of course, she fills out the whole thing, so he's like got like a big stiffy for a smart lady, and he's like, she seems really smart, I'll take her. And so he basically just takes her home, and she has been apparently adopted 3 times before.
I think 4 times. They
said. Some crazy number like that, and just given back, which I didn't know you could do. Return a child.
I mean, I don't know if you could do it here, but in other countries around the world, maybe.
Like, they probably wouldn't fly via USPS, but I don't know what other method you could have of returning this child.
Just ship them in DHL. They'll send anything.
And I would like to take this moment to talk about something very hilarious that I picked up in the first episode and continued for the rest of the show. Because this entire time, he adopts Anya, brings her home. She's 6 years old, but it's noted that she is way too short to be 6 years old very early on.
She's tiny.
She's very small, and he gives her, he's like, okay, so now your last name is my last name, and his fake name that he's going by, Twilight, is Lloyd Forger. And I pissed my pants so many times because I was like, dude picks Forger as a last name. I was like, that is just pure comedy. That is just gold.
Well, it was just one of those moments when I saw the name because they did a kind of a cool cinematic trick here where like when they said his name, it just like it was the background went either white or black, I can't remember, and then the text of his name in like script writing showed up as the opposite color. So let's just say for argument's sake the background was white and in black text it was Lloyd Forger. And I'm like, I'm sitting there with a beer in hand going, cool. Cool. You know what? Fine. I'll give it to you.
Fine.
Lloyd Forger.
You know whatever. It's
exactly.
okay.
Yeah, he's a master disguise forger. I'm just like, you know what? It's kind of adorable, so
it is.
I let it ride. And but I was surprised how every time Lloyd said his name, I was like immediately in.
Yeah.
Like very quickly into the show, I stopped cheering for Twilight and I started cheering for Lloyd.
Wow,
like,
that is a great distinction, actually.
Yeah, I started cheering for who knows. This might be a trope in the rest of the series, but it's very clear that Twilight is taking on a lot of responsibility because he has a child, and even in the first episode, you could tell he's developing some emotional attachment to Anya, and so it's very interesting to see if he becomes the character in a way where Twilight fades and Lloyd takes over. There's a lot of interesting ways you can go with it. Am I jumping ahead? Yeah, but I'm just that's how my brain works because we watch so much anime now and pro wrestling, which I've learned now are like the same in terms of story structure and
yes.
And so now I can't help but like do the prediction thing where I'm like, where fantasy booking or like where's it going?
Right. Like, where's the story lead? Because I think there's a point where they really hammer in the duality of him being Twilight versus him being Lloyd, and how sometimes, like, when he's taking care of Anya or watching Anya, that his, like, spy self is kind of slipping away, or, like, when he allows himself to relax, quote-unquote, he ends up falling over and, like, laying down.
That was one of my favorite scenes, and I forget which episode that was. That might have been actually later. I don't remember what episode that happened in. But when
might have been 2 or something when she actually took the exam.
She did. Yeah, so spoiler, she did take the exam and she passed. And Lloyd did the classic father thing where he swung around like, you passed. And as he's holding her, he just falls backwards and he passes out. And it was so cute. Anya going like, Daddy, don't leave me, please.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Because they're building up, as we'll get to more, they're building up the entire time that Anya is growing increasingly attached to her new father.
Yes. And also her knowing that he's a spy is like a whole nother thing, because every thought he has, like, and she the whole time is like, oh, I can't let him know that I read minds because that's why people get rid of me, because I can read minds. And so she's like experiencing all of his thoughts and being like, oh, Dad's a spy? That's fucking cool, dude.
Yes.
And she's really excited because she loves like this spy cartoon that she watches generally. So to her, it's like, I'm in a fucking movie. This is awesome. And she gets kidnapped in the first episode, and he rescues her and stuff like that. And he every time he says something to her, it's very funny because he says like, oh, he finds her like after he saves her from being kidnapped. He finds her again, and he's like, oh, I just like was down the block, doing something, no big deal. And she always goes like, Daddy is a liar.
Well, I actually have to point out the scene right before that, which is a great scene because so what happens is we're unsure of how this transpires. So basically, Anya broke into Lloyd's room and basically sent a transmission from his like super spy box or whatever.
So, that's right. Yes.
So the local authorities tracked the source of it and got there and kidnapped Anya, thinking whatever. Lloyd comes home, goes, what the fuck? And there's a great scene here where a dude with short black hair is shown behind Lloyd after he ducks down to like get something. You see him going with a crowbar, and like the kind of like the thud or like kind of the physical like or the visual effect you would expect to come with a pow onomatopoeia. You just see kind of that thwacking motion or like effect, particle effect, whatever you want to call it, based on whatever medium you choose. So they show that effect. So as an audience member, we're led to believe, oh no, Lloyd got knocked out. So it cuts to this like abandoned warehouse. That's actually one of my favorite Japanese live action tropes. So So whenever a scene takes place in an abandoned warehouse, I'm all in. So anyway.
Oh man, you would love the CW's Arrow then. Every fucking fight in the first season takes place in an abandoned warehouse, and it's always a different abandoned warehouse. It's quite amazing, actually, what they were able to do in that production. So funny. Continue, though.
Oh no, we'll talk about this more later because I've seen a couple episodes of Arrow. I got people put it down. People put it on while I was drinking. I'm like, I'm not getting up.
Like, well, I'm not leaving because I have a beer.
I have a beer or several. But anyway, so we have this warehouse. All like these like local law enforcement people have Anya, or we believe are law enforcement, but actually turns out to be more like criminal, like corrupt cops and like criminal underbelly to society, if you will. So, what happens is, we see the guy with the short black hair who knocked out Lloyd, presumably, who looks like to be Lloyd, who is someone with Lloyd's suit and a paper bag over his head. Mm-hmm. So he throws this guy on the floor, and then he grabs the girl and runs away. No one's paying attention. They take the bag off the guy's head. It's the short-haired guy who presumably knocked out Lloyd. Meanwhile, Lloyd is actually in a mask, looking like the short-haired guy who tried to knock him out but failed. And I love this. Anya is able to tell it's him only by his thoughts. She's able to read his thoughts and go, Papa.
Yeah, Papa.
Well, or Chi-Chi in the actual Japanese. But anyway, so
Chi-Chi. It's very funny.
So she picks up immediately. It's him, and like he's like trying to act like a tough guy who's letting her go, and that's the great moment where we first hear Papa's a terrible liar.
Yeah,
and that keeps coming back. So those two scenes, that and the one you mentioned before with him at the like, oh yeah, this supermarket's closed. Yeah, because it actually wasn't a warehouse; it was a supermarket, but that's essentially the same thing.
Right? Like, essentially.
Yeah, it looked like a warehouse.
Yeah,
and So he tries to brighten it off, and she's like, yeah, terrible liar, because he's trying everything not to tell her. He's trying his best not to tell Anya he's a spy, but she knows because she's a telepath.
Yes. And that's so funny.
And then like that was and it was great because there was a scene where in the first episode where our boy Lloyd kind of realizes his deeper psychological connection to Anya. Mm-hmm. Because when he was a kid, it cuts to him like in a burnt out landscape, just crying his eyes out, and it was so funny. This is where like the critical part of my brain and the emotional part of my brain were on two very different wavelengths.
Ooh, okay, give it to me.
Because when I saw that scene, I said, "All right, cool. You're gonna shoe in a tragic backstory for our male lead and expect me to care." But at the same time, my emotional side is going, Lloyd's such a bro.
Yeah. He's a dude. Hardships. I can get a beer with this man. Yeah.
And he just cares about Anya. So again, it's a cliche I recognize and I'm pretty used to, kind of the shoehorn tragic backstory. And again, abusive childhood or rough childhood is the easiest form of it. However, when done properly and done with characters you care about, it can still work. Mm-hmm. So, whatever you want to say about me in the scenario, I was kind of invested in Lloyd's story for going from this point forward. I'm like, okay, he clearly has rough experiences, which enables him to care about Anya more. So when episode 1 finished, I thought to myself, okay, let's see where this goes. And then we cut to episode 2, and then we get the focus gets shifted to another character, our female lead,
whose name is Yor. And speaking
W-O-R.
Yes, Yor, like the thing that you have on Christmases, or what's in that song, like and have yourself a little Christmas. It's like something of yore. These days of yore. Yeah, she's one of those. She's a Yor. She is
great.
Introduced in episode 2. And speaking of characters that we care about, I have to say, I care too much about this character. I
Really?
think she is a great character. I really enjoyed her introduction.
Okay.
I really enjoy her place in the story, about like all the details about her too. I think it's super fun. I can unequivocally say, because I would probably be taken to jail if I took the other option, but I can unequivocally say that Yor is best girl.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you pick the other option, I would have a lot of questions. But I mean,
absolutely. But we get to the second episode, and that's all about Yor,
right.
and you know, her character's introduced, and she's a civil worker, and so is her brother. By day, and an assassin by night. And we don't really see her brother, but her brother is also a civil worker who has a weirdly affectionate relationship with her, it seems.
Well, it's kind of weird on multiple levels because the exposition kind of threw me off because I got confused about the relationship. Because they established early on that he's like significantly younger than her.
Yes.
They keep saying that, but they work in the same field and presumably in similar title and situation. Yeah. So I'm like, how much younger can he possibly be? Because they reveal early on that she's like 27. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if he's working in civil service, I mean, and gunning for a promotion, youngest he can be is like, well, because you know, I don't know how it goes over in Japan if you need a college degree for that or not. So let's just say, for argument's sake, you don't, so we can make it the youngest as possible. Mm-hmm. Let's say he's like maybe like 19, maybe is the youngest.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so we do it, but we don't see him, so
we don't know. There's something suspicious about that, and I think that maybe we'll get more fleshed out as it goes on. But he also, it's implied that he's in like a very much like a leadership role because he apparently is helping her financially as well.
Yes.
It seems that way,
younger.
At least.
Yeah. He's younger in a similar field, so I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I have no idea. But I mean, I'm sure we'll learn more about that later. But we get introed to her, and we find out very quickly that she's an assassin. She gets a call on the phone after talking with her brother, and it's this like somebody she calls the shopkeeper who tells her like who to assassinate and when. And she's of course like a freaking badass. She has like these little like gold knife things that like impale her foes in the face and probably in the dick.
I forget the name of these things, but like they're the dagger with like the hoops on the end, so she's constantly twirling.
Is it a sai?
Might be a sai. I think
Shout
it's a
out
sai.
To, is it the same weapon that Raphael from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles uses?
Well,
they're long
that one had
but short.
Well, but that one had like that one didn't those have like the two spikes on the end?
Yeah, like the little things on the sides.
Yeah, like the main blade and the two spikes on the side. Those didn't have in the show. Yours daggers didn't have that, so I don't know if they're exactly size. I'm trying to think. I'm thinking back to Mortal Kombat now, of all things. I feel like someone had these.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure they did. Like a Molina weapon or something. But anywho, I
think Molina actually just had size. I think she just had
fuck. All right.
So we both went back. Yeah. I love how you went to Raphael and I went to Molina, and we were just both wrong.
We were wrong, but holding hands the whole time.
Exactly. So clearly we don't know much about daggers, which might be a good thing.
It could be. Very, very not incriminating. Very into not getting put in jail on this podcast specifically.
Well, the thing is, like, I mean, I've never met someone who was super into daggers and came away okay from the conversation. I'm just saying.
You're correct. You are correct.
I'm sorry if anyone listening is really into daggers. Please change my mind. I think we have all of our links in descriptions. Shoot us a message or an email and say, hey, I'm into daggers. We're not all weirdos. I will gladly read it.
You can tell us that I actually have a it's not a dagger, it's a dirk. It's called, and it's because I got it in Germany. Real quick, I got it in Germany at this sword shop that I went to, like in this random small town called Rothenburg in Germany, which is like 2 hours down from Berlin. And while I was there, I was like, hey, can I buy this? And I was like, maybe like 12. And they were like, yeah, a 12-year-old? Absolutely, you can buy this. And I got it. And I was like, hey, I saw the dirk. Yeah, it's in my parents' place right now. But I was like, oh, can I bring this back to the States? And they were like, yeah, you'll be fine. And I was like, weird, probably not. And then I put it in my suitcase, and it was fine.
Well, yeah, because I remember that dirk was sitting on like it was sitting in, I guess, like the whatever you want to call it, the unit that had your TV in it, and it had a bunch of shelves in it.
Yeah.
It was just sitting there throughout your entire childhood. And it was funny because there are a couple Christmases for me, total tangent here, my brother would just get me weapons. And one of them...
That's right, he was really into getting you weapons randomly.
It happened for like a year and change or more. And it was really funny because one year, it was like this... It was like, imagine people at home, if you will. A giant brass knuckle, but it faced the other way.
Oh.
It's like, so basically, imagine like, kind of like that thing with the 4 fingers, but a giant thing you held in your palm. Instead of like, so, but imagine there was one giant blade in the middle and 2 blades on the side. So it basically, imagine give yourself a giant claw. Like the whole thing was like,
oh my god! Okay, like a Valdo from Soul Calibur weapon.
Exactly.
Nice.
And I use the brass. Sorry, I kind of messed up the brass knuckles analogy. Beers comparison.
But whatever.
So the 4 holes, and then it had a giant blade on top and 2 blades on the side, and it was so funny. Because when I opened it on Christmas Day, I noticed like the blades were like weirdly stained. I'm like, was this used? But it was so funny because it was like a yellowish color. I'm like, what has this been through? And he's like, oh yeah, well after I got it, me and my buddy Tommy were in the back slicing apples with it. Like they would lob each other apples, and then the other one would slice it in the air.
That's pretty sick, actually.
So basically, he gave me a gift he got himself, and then just gave it to me. He's like, Merry Christmas.
He got you a used Fruit Ninja sword, essentially.
And this was several years before Fruit Ninja, so I guess a little ahead of the curve there. But
good on them.
spyxfamily.
Oh yeah, right. Let's get back into it, right? It's a show. It's a show about spies.
And a family.
And a family. But yeah, your long story short is talking to her brother, and her brother's like, oh, have you found a boyfriend yet? And she's like, weirdly, she's like, yes. And I'm like, why did you do that? But she accidentally is like, yeah, I totally have a boyfriend so that he doesn't worry about her anymore. And she,
I have to butt in here.
Please,
this ties into a
give me
very...
that butt. Back that ass up against my wood, please. Thank you.
Wood. Anyway, so this ties back into a pretty weird aspect of Japanese culture, where they're very critical of women who aren't dating or married after the age of 25.
Yes.
And I think the term is the term they use over there is Christmas cake because it's no good after the 25th. And it's just brutal.
I never knew that.
I mean, this one's not exactly that common. Yeah, this one's like one of the more brutal ones when you hear it.
Oh my god!
Oh no, it's bad.
Yeesh. Yeah, but I did get that feeling throughout. It made sense that I kind of thought of that. Not in such detailed terminology, but I did think about that. And she's 27, and everyone's like, why don't you have a boyfriend? And all of her friends at work who are fucking bitches are like, oh, why don't you have a boyfriend? That's weird. Maybe you should meet somebody. Hey, I'm having a party this weekend. Come by with your boyfriend.
Yeah, all those C words are total B words. That's all I can say.
There you go. And so what happens is she has to bring somebody to this party and her brother's friend is going to be there. So she's like, oh, well, I have to like make sure my brother's friend sees my boyfriend so that he can tell my brother that I'm okay. And it's very strange. It's very strange. But then she meets Lloyd at a clothing shop when Lloyd is getting some clothing done for Anya, and she's getting a dress done for herself, which she refuses to have in any other color but black and red because of the blood stains, which is hilarious.
And I can attest because I wear predominantly black now because growing up with the heavy metal kid and the pro wrestling guy, every shirt I wore was in black. But now as an adult, I've realized I've been spoiled because I constantly spill food and beer on myself, but I never noticed until I started expanding my palette and I started wearing stuff other than black. And I'm like, this is terrible. I'm just constantly staining myself. So,
see, I stopped wearing white clothing of any kind in 2014. I have not bought a white shirt since then. I just can't do it anymore because I would keep buying these white shirts and then keep eating pasta with marinara sauce, my favorite meal as a college student, and I would just spill marinara sauce all over my shirt every time. Even if I didn't spill it, there would be speckles of like red marinara sauce all over my white clothes, and I'd be like, oh no. So then I ended up having to take off my shirt whenever I ate pasta at home, and then it was just bad. And then I just said, you know what? And then I got pit stains in them. And I was like, you know what? Like, these white shirts, they ain't doing good for me. I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to go black.
Well, the thing is, pit stains will happen in any shirt because, like, I have a lot of black shirts, right? And depending on what, like, deodorant you use, like you'll get white pit stains on black shirts.
Yes, I do see those. I have gotten those as well.
I get them all the time because I'm a sweaty boy and I like to apply a lot of deodorants. I don't want to stink up whatever room I'm in. I like to take over a room, but not via smell. I'd rather let my personality do the heavy lifting, if you know what I mean. I don't want people to smell me first thing. But, it just sucks because there's so many shirts I love, but there's like these gross like white pit stains. So what I'll do, honestly, I'll just throw an shirt over it or a jacket. I'm like, yeah, no one can see how gross I am.
Nice. Spyxfamily! And, right, so then they meet... And she brings him to a party, but he's first on a spy mission, right? So he's like killing these dudes, getting all blood on him and stuff. And then he shows up late to the party after all of her friends have already been very mean for a very long time to her.
Total rude ass B words.
Big B word energy, big BC energy. And they come over right when Lloyd gets there. The blonde friend of hers, who I can't remember the name. Thank God, she doesn't deserve that.
I don't remember.
But she comes over and she's like, "Oh, you have a boyfriend? Wow, I didn't expect him to come." And then she pretends to drop an entire piping hot casserole on her, and then like Yor kicks it and it like flips over and she catches it. And some of the casserole actually lands on her blonde friend instead. And it's very hot, and she's very embarrassed. Take that, Stacy.
Sarah, you stupid bitch.
Sarah, you stupid bitch.
But I love that scene so much because Lloyd says something. He's like, wow, great dedication for not spilling food. And then he takes some of like the shrimp or whatever it was, the shrimp casserole, whatever it was, and went, delicious. And just the entire time this cool thing happens, but fucking Lloyd and Yor like, yeah, that was just another day at the office for us. Yeah
It was pretty funny how that worked out. And then afterwards they're leaving, and it appears that Lloyd was not able to shake off all of these assailants that were chasing him the entire time. So they resumed the chase on him in a van with Yor. And the entire time, he's like, Yor's like, who are these people like trying to very violently murder you? And he's like, oh yeah, like I'm a psychologist. They're my patients. Psychiatrist. They're my patients. I just have to concuss them so that they stop. And she's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, but then she very quickly catches on, but she's like, all right, cool, he's lying, but okay.
And then she starts like absolutely murking these guys, and they both just like do that. And then at the end of it, because he accidentally announced himself at the party as her husband,
because he got the story crossed.
Yeah, and he does need a wife anyways. So then they decided to be husband and wife, but he sat down, got on one knee, undid a grenade, took the grenade ring, and put it on her finger as the grenade exploded, killing all of his pseudo-patients.
In the background, I mean, it was one of those scenes where I didn't know how to feel about it. I mean, because, it's one of those things, again, critical part of my brain, emotional part, again.
Yeah.
My emotional part was badass and funny and awesome. The critical part says probably really fucking stupid, but I'm in for the ride.
I was definitely in for the ride for that. I really liked it. I sat there and I was like, wow, so this is Hollywood, right? It's very like a big like Hollywood moment, and I was like, this is a great show. I really enjoyed this so far.
Well, yeah, you can tell this entire show was way more inspired by Western media than anything.
Yes,
anything more anime in the anime sphere.
Absolutely.
Which is a very refreshing change of pace.
Oh, yeah. And then, then the third episode we can go over pretty quickly, because the third episode is Yor moves into the house that Lloyd has bought, that Anya lives in. And it's very cute because Yor comes in and Yor's like, oh, this is a great house. And Anya's like, it's Anya's house. I'll show you around. And she like takes her on a little tour.
A little tour, yeah.
It's so freaking cute. And then what happens is they go out together. Well, Lloyd is trying to prep both of them for this big family interview that they have to get into the preparatory school. After she passed the exam, they have to have a full family interview. So they go to they're getting ready to do that, and he's asking them questions, and they're both failing absolutely miserably. So then he's like, all right, maybe let's go out and have some experiences. Let's go to the opera. Let's go to a museum. Let's practically kill a guy for stealing a woman's purse. And that all happens that day.
And that, of course, was the best part. And I loved the attention to detail here. That so like and there's cute character moments the entire time. Like Anya's falling asleep at the opera.
Oh
at the fine art museum, she sees like a portrait and goes, "Huh, I could see your boobies." And then, there's this great moment where there's a purse snatching happening, Yor like jumps down from like the hill they're on to try to catch the guy, but she loses track of him. But then Anya and Lloyd are walking, and Anya is reading everyone's thoughts, and she is able to pinpoint the guy who did it.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't want to turn around and tell Lloyd, "I see the guy." So she notices the cake shop right there and points to him and goes, "I want cake." And Lloyd goes, "Oh, don't be silly," as he's looking towards the shop, but then sees the guy who would changed clothes.
Yeah.
And he's like, he changed clothes, but he can't change the way he walks. So it was a brilliant little scene, and it really painted the picture of this family.
Yes.
And at the end of the episode, the old lady whose purse got snatched, she even said, like, the three of them kind of bickering in a playful way. It's like, you guys are such a cute family. Anya's over the moon. Yor and Lloyd are like, huh? And then look at each other and don't know how to feel. And then episode 3 ends.
It's very funny because all three characters combined, it seems like what at least is being built up, it seems like they make a perfect team.
Exactly.
Being utilized all together to achieve one goal. That's usually destroying some evil man. But something else that was pretty fun for me to see throughout the entire show was how each of the characters are all, even though this crazy shit happens 3 episodes in, they're all still actively trying to hide something from the other two.
Yes, and I love it.
And that is the coolest dynamic because they're all because they all have their exact intentions in mind. And yours intention is oh, I'll marry this man so my brother stops bothering me, and also so I can keep being an assassin. It's the perfect cover, being a wife. And
yes.
Lloyd is oh, finally I got my family to do this. I'm only gonna be their dad and only gonna be their husband for the amount of time it takes until I finish the mission. And then Anya's I have a family, woohoo! But nobody can know that I'm a telepath. And it's very fun.
It's 3 people with very different intentions coming together. I love that, and I love that plot device of all of them not knowing each other's intentions, and all of them sneakily trying to fulfill their own goals. But yet at the same time, I assume there's gonna be common ground in their goals that brings them even further together, and maybe even change their goals. So there's a lot of interesting ways they can take this.
Yeah, I think so. And, with that, as we do for a 3-episode rule episode, Rob, I got to ask, are you in or are you out?
See, it's pretty funny. Before this episode started and right now, my answer changed.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, because honestly, before we started talking about it and really went over it and I realized how much I enjoyed it, I originally was going to be out for one reason.
Okay. What was the reason?
The show, unfortunately, then this is a problem indicative of a lot of current anime, where they know the first 3 episodes they have to lay the hook and then really pull you in. Unfortunately, a lot of shows, they'll present what feels like a little almost too complete of a story, where you can stop and be happy with it.
I see.
So going back to something we talked about a long time ago, Spirit Chronicles, the first 3 episodes, you could realistically stop there because that's the full story.
It was a good resolution of that small arc, right?
Exactly. And if it wasn't investing, if it didn't draw you in enough, you could be done and not really care.
Right.
Because, like, hey, you got a little story. You don't need any more. That's a little bit of what I felt. That was my gut reaction when I finished the show. I'm like, okay, it was cute and a lot of fun, but do I need more?
Mm-hmm. I see.
But now that I'm thinking about the characters and their dynamics and, all the questions I have about where the show could go, I'm actually, again, going to go back to Spirit Chronicles, and I'm going to steal your answer. I'm in for episode 4, and then taking it from there.
Ooh, yes. Very good. Nice. I'd love to hear that. I really love to hear that. I think for me personally, I believe it was maybe around the episode 2 mark, somewhere in episode 2, where right. I was like, oh, I'm definitely in. I am.
Really?
Oh, I am. This show I thought was so freaking good. At least for these first 3 episodes, I felt like this show presented an interesting story, really fun characters, a lot of good comedy, a lot of good, like, oh, what's going to happen with this? Like, how is this going to go? It got me intrigued. It really fired on all cylinders for those 3 episodes. The only big critique I had was that the first episode moved so quickly. But other than that, coming in from the first 3 episodes, I'm like, this is great. Like, I watch it. When I watch things for this podcast, right? I often am like picking out things and like taking notes and like, trying to like figure some stuff out about the show and like, oh, like, okay, what would be some interesting points to bring up about this? For this one, of course, I barely have any notes. I legitimately just sat back and enjoyed it the whole time. That's what I was
awesome
doing.
To hear. That's really awesome to hear.
I wasn't even thinking, like, when I was watching the 3rd episode, I watched it this morning. I think it was this morning. I watched the 3rd one this morning, and I was thinking to myself the whole time, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to watch the new SpyxFamily. And then I was like, oh, for podcast. I was like, oh no, I'm watching it for me. I feel like
there we go.
Like, it felt great. I just think it's a great combination of all these things. It's very cute. It's very fun. It's action packed as well. Yes. There's also a whole nother character that is the guy that kind of helps out Twilight and is like his pseudo friend or something.
Oh yeah, like, the poofy haired guy.
Yeah, the poofy hair kind of like shopkeeper kind of guy. That's also a spy. He's another fun character. There are just a lot of fun elements to this, and I think there's a lot of ways where it can go. And the fact that it seems like the community is very excited about this show.
The community seems to have gotten really behind it, because I remember when you recommended, I did some like very small like little scrolling through TikTok, and I found it come up a couple times. I'm like, okay, people seem to be into this one. Yeah, people are liking it, and I often think about it as like, oh man, I don't know. I feel as though a lot, even though I chose this one for us to do, like the first show on the page of Crunchyroll is usually something we shy away from, because we're all about like finding stuff that's like probably gonna suck, or finding stuff that's probably like, I don't know how to describe it, but just things that are a little more general and a little more like kind of untraveled. And this one exactly
had just so much good about it that in no way could I call it bad. In no way am I doing anything but keep watching it. And I'm just happy we found it. And I hope everybody enjoys us talking about it, because I think, like, depending on what happens, we could give it a whole season. But in the meantime, we'll just sit back, we'll check it out, and we'll see what happens.
Let's sit back and enjoy it, because, it could be that very interesting scenario where we watch the whole show and go, yeah, there's not enough to talk about because it's just good.
Exactly. That's another thing that I thought, because when I was making my way through it, I was like, there's a lot that we can like address now, but if we were to talk about it as like a full season, like if it's just really good, like, sorry, that's it.
We're out of cut. Yeah, exactly. And then we'll bring it up in one of our monthly specials and then just kind of riff on it for like 5 minutes and go, it's good, sorry.
Just like Love Live Superstar, exactly like that whole thing.
Exactly. Where we just go, yeah, it's good. Oops. For a show called Bad Anime, we sometimes miss the mark in picking bad anime.
Yeah, no, this was definitely an unfortunate turn of events, but a good one.
Exactly. So if you guys want to help us with more bad anime, please shoot us a DM, on the Instagram, or there's the email.
Suggest some shows. We got a lot to work through. We got a lot more episodes coming your way, so a lot more 3-episode rules too, which I'm starting to really, really love as well. But
I'm digging the fuck out of them.
Yeah, keep it real, my guys and gals out there. Hope you had a good time watching spyxfamily, and enjoy the rest of the season, because I know I will be enjoying the rest of the season. You're his best girl.
And I'm going to give the rest of the season a shot and see how it goes. I'm excited, though.
And until then, everybody, we will see you next time. Pew pew. Goodbye.
Bang, bang.
It's bad. Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you can leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
In your ear. Podcast Network.